I am Jacqueline Whiting Bostic, chairperson of the 149th Juneteenth celebration at the historic Emancipation Park, which was formally established in 1872. My great-grandfather, the Reverend John Henry Jack Yates, was instrumental in our community being able to purchase this land from the owner. With the membership of the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church and the Trinity United Methodist Church, under the leadership of Reverend Dibble, the church community came together to purchase the 10 acres of land we know today as Emancipation Park. In 1872, an association was formed to legally purchase the land for the community. This historic park is the first park in the city of Houston and the first park in the state of Texas. At the time the park was established, the city had no other established parks, and the state of Texas had no other established parks. So this is our 149th anniversary. Our theme for this year is freedom and justice. The year 2020 has been a very difficult year for our country and for our community. The Emancipation Park Conservancy believes that it is important to hear from our church community leaders. For we know that the church in the Black community has been a solid rock and a catalyst for change in our community since the change has come about for the emancipation of former slaves in our country, state, and city. It is our pleasure to present the role of the Black church in the Black community. The facilitator for the discussion is Ms. Iris Garcia, a minister and pastor. She has served in the Houston community for over 10 years. She has served in various leadership and outreach programs in the city. During the devastation of Hurricane Harvey, working with the Red Cross and the Cajun Navy and other groups, she helped to ensure that more than 100 families were rescued from high water and were saved. It is our pleasure to present to you Minister and Pastor Garcia, along with our theme, the role of the Black church in the Black community.
My name is Linda Davis, and my church is Boynton Chapel United Methodist Church, located at 2812 Milby Street in the historic Greater Third Ward of Houston, Texas. And I am Pastor Linda Davis.
Pastor Davis, thank you so much for joining us for our Juneteenth segment for the role of the Black church in the Black community. It's such an honor to be able to sit down with you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being a part of Juneteenth.
Yes, ma'am.
And coming out to celebrate with you all.
Absolutely. We would not have seen it any other way. So we're going to get right into it. I'm going to ask you a couple questions because we understand the importance of the church and the role that the church plays in the community. So we felt like it was really important to be able to gather a spiritual perspective from a spiritual leader here in the community on a couple of questions that our audience would love to hear from, okay?
Okay.
So let me ask you, how would you state the purpose and the meaning of your church here in the community?
Boynton Chapel United Methodist Church was founded in 1880. Okay. They have been a part of the Third Ward community since 1957. Oh, wow. And we have been a beacon of light in the community with reference to making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Yes. We have taken a holistic approach since I've been there the last 5 years of meeting the needs of the congregants within the church as well as outside the church. Okay. And we've taken that holistic approach in many ways, spiritually, economically, socially,
Yeah.
culturally, and educationally. We know that it is a firm commitment to be a part of this community. So we have come with more intensity,
Yes.
more commitment, and we are so excited about serving this community. So but we truly believe that we are equipped to empower.
Yes.
We are to build and to bridge,
Yes.
to love and to lift, to ignite and to light.
That's right.
With passion to serve, with power to lead.
Yes.
We truly believe that Boynton is the church that God has positioned in this community for such a time as this.
That's you said so much, but in all of what you said, it's needed to hear, because being a lighthouse and, like you said, establishing the foundation. The church is where the community grasps to when there's concerns and life-changing events within the world that's taking place. So just your concept, the fundamental guidelines that you have placed down there, it's what the community needs right now.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. I want to ask you, can you recall the moment that caused your church to react and to become involved?
Oh my God, there are so many moments in which Boynton has been involved in the community, and we're just excited about what we've been doing.
Yes.
In 2017, you will recall this.
I did.
In 2017, my colleague and I wrote a grant
Yes.
for a free dental clinic in partnership with Texas Mission of Mercy.
Yes.
After we had reviewed a document from the city that showed that people in the Third Ward community do not get dental care. And we were one of the lowest areas in the community for dental care, in the city, in the state, and even in the U.S.
Wow.
So we partnered and we were granted that opportunity to provide free dental service to persons in this community, but not just in this community. We had so many people, and you can attest to that.
Yes, I
we
did.
held it right here at the Emancipation
amazing
Park. It
day.
was an amazing,
Yes.
awesome opportunity. We had people that come from all over.
Yes, you did.
And according to records and statistics, we turned away about 3,000 people.
Yes, I do remember that.
But we were able to provide over 744 dental services for people in the community.
That's amazing.
Which was so awesome.
Yes, yes.
As a matter of fact, one of the other things that we have done recently was after the storm, we walked the community to see what the
really?
needs were in the community.
That was so good.
And in walking the community, we found out that many people, of course, did not have water or power in our community for a number of days. So we partnered with some of our elected officials, and we served 13 pallets of water.
Wow.
Yes, in a 2-week period of time.
That's
So that
awesome.
was just great. But in serving the water, came across one of the ladies. She said, "I know you." And I'm like, "Okay." And she said, "I know you." I said, "Where do you know me from?" She said, "You were at the dental clinic.
Oh,
You
my
guys
goodness.
did the
So
dental
she
thing."
connected.
So she connected.
Wow.
Yes, it was
See?
really, really
That's
powerful to
awesome.
know that you are serving people. And my heart just was so warm
Yes.
from her conversation on
Absolutely.
that day.
Oh my goodness.
One of the other things that we have done here in the Third Ward community and at Boynton was, during COVID-19, all of us have been challenged to go where we've never gone before, to
my
do what we've
goodness.
never done before, and to be who we've never been before.
Yeah.
So HISD, they were out of school for 6 to 8 weeks when they first got started.
Yep.
So we were approached by them and asked to be what they call the sanctuaries of learning, in which we provided Wi-Fi and for students in the neighborhood in my community
Okay.
that did not have Wi-Fi. So we
Very
did that
good.
for 6 to 8
That was
weeks.
so needed during that time, especially in the
my
beginning.
God.
Yes, yes.
Oh my God. But let me share
Wow.
a story with you that was so powerful. There's a couple stories, but I'll share just one.
Okay, that's fine.
There was a young boy who is a student, a scholar at Blacksher Elementary, and he was there every day. He never missed a day. So what HISD did, they provided them with gifts, and one of the gifts they provided was a new bike. So they came in on this particular day to present him his bike, and he looked like, "Oh, okay, I got a bike."
Right.
So I was like, "Hey, are you excited that you got a bike?" And he was like, "I'm excited that I got a bike, but I am more excited that I just got 100 on my spelling test. And he was in the
goodness.
4th grade. And I was
Quite
just
profound.
so happy and so excited about him
Yeah.
and what we've been doing in the community. So
Absolutely.
it makes us understand the purpose of the church and the role of the church.
Right.
Because now is the time.
Yes, it is.
Now is the time to be able to help those within the community, to help our students, our scholars in the community
Absolutely.
by providing food, by
Yes.
doing so many different things so that a child doesn't go to bed hungry or wake up hungry.
That's right.
Now is the time to be concerned about the food insecurity in our community so that we can have quality grocery stores. Yes, we have a new grocery store in our community, but where I'm located, it's still quite
still
a
there in need.
distance.
Yes, yes.
So now is the time to talk about affordable housing and health care and so many other things. And the church has always, since the beginning of the church, has always been, has been their role and their responsibility to help meet the needs of the people in the community.
Absolutely. I really like the fact that your church targets the needs. And not only do you target what that need is, but you as well do your research. You're willing to go in, elbows in with doing the paperwork, because writing a grant, I know it's not easy at all. So just the fact that you guys are willing to go those lengths to meet the needs of the community is really exceptional. So I know you're exactly where you need to be at in this community. Thank you for sharing those stories.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. What keeps you going again and again as a community leader?
All of the many stories that I hear. You know, when you know that you're really helping someone, I am a servant leader by heart and a community activist by heart. So many of the things that I have done have always been with me since I was in high school. I always served on various committees, political committees in high school. My brother was in politics, so it's always kind of been a part of my life. But what really keeps me going is the fact that the story that I just told you about. You know, one of the other stories that we sponsored with the Texas Workforce Rehabilitation Services with reference to offering financial literacy for persons who have been in prison. And there's this one guy in the community, I love him dearly, that's been in the community, and he turned himself in. He said, Pastor Davis, I need to stop this. I need to get my life together.
Awesome.
So he came to the church, we fed him, he turned himself in the next day. He spent 4 years. But when he got out, he came back to the community, and I saw him the other day, and he was in the program. We got him in the program, and he said, hey, Pastor Davis, everything's okay. I'm doing well. I'm working. So that's just so great to hear. And we truly, they call us the church for the community. When everything go on in the community, they always come to the church.
Absolutely.
So it's just been great to be a servant leader and to be a community activist in the community, something that I truly have a heart and passion for.
And this is why it's so important, and this is one of the reasons why we're doing this segment, so that the community can understand how vital the role of the church is in the community. A lot of times you think of church and you may automatically assume just Sunday service or Wednesday night Bible study, but the church is Monday through Sunday. We're actively pouring out to the community and looking for where is that need that we can fill. So this is why these stories are really important to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And here's my final question. What does healing mean to you?
Healing means to me the prayer of faith. Trusting and believing that God will heal your body from all manner of sickness and diseases, but also, without giving you a long theological dissertation, let me talk about the fact from healing, with reference to healing in your life, with reference to changing your life to becoming all that God desires you to be. So that is the purpose of our church. Our mission statement is to empower the family, strengthen the church, and transform the community for the glory of God. So we truly believe that healing can take place, like I said earlier, holistically in all of those particular segments. For example, as I talk about the young man who was in prison, you know, the healing piece that has taken place in his life. Talking about the young boy who got the new bicycle, the healing piece that has taken place in his life to know that I can do it no matter what, even in spite of the circumstances, even in spite of what my family is experiencing in life, even the fact with reference to the lady from the dental clinic. You know, she had not had her teeth cleaned in a number of years. And because she could not afford it. It was either pay rent or go to the dentist. And she just literally could not afford it. But, you know, I believe that healing can take place in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
And God tells us where 2 or 3 are gathered together, he'll be in our very midst.
That's right.
So we are so excited about the healing that is taking place here in our community, within our church, within our city. You know, today, for example, is the first year of the murder of George Floyd, and we're trusting God for that continuous healing that's taking place with reference to, we are believing God for the George Act, Police Reform Act that's before Congress and everything. So we're trusting God for all of the healing that's going to take place, not just physically, but also spiritually as well.
Absolutely. So you had a quote today that you'd like to share with us, and I would love to hear it if you don't mind.
Yes, Dr. Martin Luther King in his I Have a Dream speech, most people just remember that portion of his speech in 1963. He writes these words. He says, now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the darkness and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. He said, now is the time to open doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. He further states, now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. He said it would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of this moment. And we are in such a moment of urgency. So we need to make sure that as a community, as a church, as a people, that we continue to understand that now is the time. It's no longer, we can't wait anymore. We got to move forward. We got to go forward with power and with precision, and we got to trust that God's going to make it all right. And that, because he will. He says, now unto him who's able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ever ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. So we're just trusting God because now is the time.
That's it.
Thank you.
And you know, Pastor Davis sums it up. Now is the time to heal. And I don't think you could have said it any better than that. So we want to thank you for joining us on our segment. You've given our audience some amazing resources and an amazing perspective to gain during this segment, and as well for them to help heal. You know, and that's what a lot of people are looking for during this segment. So thank you so much, Pastor Davis.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. It's been an honor.
Thank you.
My name's Ed C. Jones III. My church is Trinity United Methodist Church on 2600 Holman in Live Oak. I am the senior pastor at Trinity.
Pastor Ed, thank you so much for joining us on our Juneteenth segment of the role of the Black church in the Black community. Such an important role that you play here, and we just are so honored to be able to hear from you today.
Praise God.
Absolutely. I'd like to ask you a series of questions just to kind of get your perspective as a community leader, a church leader here. I believe we owe it to our audience to be able to allow them to get a refresher or just a refreshing perspective from a community leader like yourself. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, how would you state the purpose and the meaning of your church here in the community?
I believe when the first pastor, Elias Dibble, when he gathered with some people who were freed and enslaved Africans, and they prayed and figured out how and what should we be. And I believe that is the place that we have to start our understanding of our purpose. From then to now, we exist to empower and liberate people with the love of Jesus Christ. When people are hungry, we feed them. When people are thirsty, we provide food for them. I mean, provide water for them. When people need clothes, we need to bring clothes to them. When people are strangers, we need to welcome them.
That's good.
Whatever it is, we need to be about that. And I believe when we stay to that, stick to it, and we flow in our purpose.
Yeah.
And I think it's a timeless thing that we will have the responsibility to do.
Absolutely. Thank you. I couldn't have said it even better myself. What I'm also hearing that your church plays a pivotal role in the community is just being able to meet the needs of the people, the needs of the moment. So, and right now that's so, I think not even just right now, but just in general, the first place that everyone looked when this pandemic hit was they looked at what's the church doing,
Yeah.
So that's very important that you mentioned that today. My second question is, can you recall the moment that caused your church to react and to become involved?
Well, one of the things I was a firefighter before becoming a pastor. In the fire department, you respond to emergencies. Actually, you plan every day to respond.
Yes.
So you could be prepared. And we have been responding to things, needs in the community in every way that we can. And one perfect example that we all lived through was COVID-19. The pandemic forced us to respond to needs.
Yes.
When people needed food, we provided food. When people needed water, we provided water. Whatever it was, we responded to those needs. And one of the things that I believe is the best example for us was when Blackshear Elementary and all of HISD needed help.
Yes.
We figured out how could we respond to those needs, and one of those needs was just to provide a safe place for parents and kids to connect to the internet. And we had space that we were not utilizing, and we created that sanctuary of learning. And we wanted to make sure we did our best. And it wasn't us by ourselves, it was all of the community partners coming together to provide everything that the kids need. And it was just being open. And Emancipation Park and everybody came together to serve those needs. And that is one example that that's the most strongest expression of the church being the church.
Absolutely.
It was another thing. When I look out and see this space here, when this space was filled with people who were getting their smiles together when the dental thing. And that was something that we had an opportunity to respond to meet the needs of the community.
Absolutely. And I believe it's really important for our audience to understand how the church meets those economic resources for the community. A lot of times we think of church, we think of going to church just on Sundays or receiving Bible study, but there's so many more elements that the church provides that the community just needs to understand. That's so important. So thank you for expressing that today. What keeps you going again and again as a community leader, Pastor Ed?
Being a native Houstonian and having an opportunity to see some of those legends like a Bill Lawson, Deloitte Parker, and people who have been fighting the good fight in our community for all these years, something that I'm mindful of. This is a marathon relay race. We all get the baton, and we can only run as best as we can while we have it. But the goal is to prepare to pass the baton.
That's right.
And in passing the baton, we have an opportunity to encourage the next generation. So our role as leaders is to look for those future leaders. And I remember finding my call in these marches with community activists who wanted to make an impression way back in the day, and never knowing that I would be a pastor, never desiring to be a pastor,
most of the
but
time.
God called me to be a part of this, to run this portion
Yes.
of the race. And so I believe the refreshing thing is knowing that I can't win the race by myself.
That's good.
I'm only can do my part.
That's right.
And run the best race I can, and making sure that I do breathe. That I for me to find myself to come in the gym and get on the elliptical.
Right.
That I need to do those things to continue to be healthy, to be whole.
Absolutely.
So those are some things that I believe that is important for me to do to continue to run this race.
Absolutely. That's an excellent answer. I really liked how you focused on just making sure you balance out yourself as a leader, because a lot of individuals or people, they don't realize how much pastors, our community leaders, they pour out so much, and who pours back into the pastor, who pours back into your leaders, because they pour so much out. So that's why it's so important to pray for our leaders as well too. So you make some excellent points there. And then my last question to you, Pastor Ed, is what does healing mean to you?
Healing means made whole.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that I look at the systems, just thinking about our body.
Yeah.
We got the skeleton system, we got the immune system, respiratory systems, all the different systems. When they're all working together, we are healthy.
Right.
But when one area is not working right, we consider that a disease, a dis-ease. And healing is bringing those systems back in order. We understand we have sick systems in our culture. And healing and wholeness is people locking arms, helping to bring wholeness to people.
Yes.
When those in individuals, and I believe we all play a part of wholeness. In Scripture, they talk about the pool that people believe that they can just get their toes in, and they'll be healed and whole. And we have a understanding of how can we work collectively as a community to bring people to that place where they can become whole. And so healing is something I believe emotionally, mentally. Mentally, we have so many people afraid to admit that they have depression, they have all these things going on, but healing is being confident to say, like myself, I have depression.
I don't have it all together.
I missed the mark. I take my pills in the morning so I can function and be my best. Healing is being able to be open and authentic and real about who we are, where we are. Take the mask off.
Take the mask off. I like that. I think that's a perfect way to end this question. Take the mask off. Just to kind of really piggyback on what you said, confession. It's biblical to confess to one another. And that in itself brings so much more healing than people understand. So thank you so much for giving that insight to our audience. And I want to thank you again for being here with us on our Juneteenth segment, The Role of the Black Church in the Black Community. It's such an honor to sit down with you today.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm Reverend Marilyn White. I'm at Trinity East United Methodist Church, located at 2418 McGowan, Houston, Texas, here in 3rd Ward, and I'm the senior pastor.
So thank you, Reverend White, for being here with us on our Juneteenth segment, The Role of the Black Church in the Black Community. Such a vital, important role that the church plays for the 3rd Ward community, and obviously communities all within our nation. So we're really excited to have you here today to join us.
Thank you so much for having us. So glad to be here with you.
Yes, ma'am. It's an honor. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that really just kind of pertain to some insight that we believe our audience members would love to hear from the church, as we are in such challenging times, of course, but times that I believe the church offers a lot of hope to the local community. So my first question is, how would you state the purpose and the meaning of your church here in the community?
Well, I think the purpose and meaning of our church here in the community is, first of all, let me say, I see us as family.
Yes.
We are all one. We're not just in the community to be separate from the community.
That's
We
right.
are the community. And when one suffers, we all suffer. When one rejoices, we all rejoice. So we are in this together. And then I also see us as a beacon light where God has planted us in Third Ward, shining brightly, sharing the love of God through our service, our witness, and
Yes.
our worship, our fellowship, and just being family to each other.
Yes, absolutely.
As I said, we are one. And so one of my favorite scriptures is Micah 5:7. And it says, what does God require of us?
Yeah.
And it says that he requires that we act justly, we love mercy, and we love each other.
That's
And
right.
so to do that, love is an action word.
Yes,
So
it
we
is.
have to put that love into action
Yes.
and show our love
Yes.
so that we can help and that the community will feel safe and feel comfortable and know that we are family and we are here to do whatever we can. As God blesses us, we're blessed to be a blessing.
No, that's absolutely right. You said it so eloquently, especially as you focused on love, which is so important. And I believe that most of the world right now is really lacking, to be quite honest with you. I believe the church can bring so much love to a lot of brokenness that the communities are experiencing right now. Not that we want to focus in on that, but it is the state of a lot of our communities. So love is just so important. My second question is, can you recall the moment that caused your church to react and become involved? Let me say that again. The moment that caused your church to react and to become involved.
Well, I'll say for Trinity East, I think it started in our long, rich history. It was the foundation for Trinity East. Trinity East this year will be celebrating 112 years of ministry. And I've been there 7 years. So the fire was already burning when I got there. But it starts, as I said, with our history, and I'll share in just a moment. Trinity East was formed through a church that was located downtown Houston, and it was an African American church. But at that time, from what I understand, that this was many, many years ago, back in the 1900s,
Yes, ma'am.
that to get downtown was tedious. It was a tedious journey. The streets weren't the best, and so most of the members were here in Third Ward, and they got together and said, why can't we have a church of our own in Third Ward?
Makes sense.
Where we don't have to travel to go downtown, to have our own church. And so Trinity East started as a small Sunday school class here on McGowan in Third Ward, right around from Emancipation Park. And that class grew and became a church of its own. So I think the foundation was already laid to speak up and get involved, and let's make a difference for our community. And they have continued that history up until now.
That's awesome. And what I'm hearing even in that is, the church acting as a voice for the people, which is so important even right now, being able to meet those needs.
Yes.
There's a difference between meeting the needs and then meeting the needs at the moment.
Yes.
And I believe that was definitely a need, obviously, that you all saw the community needed to bring the church closer in so they wouldn't have to travel so far.
Right.
So that's an awesome foundational story to share. My third question is, what keeps you going again and again as a community leader, as you just expressed, being the voice of, the people?
What keeps me going, I think, first of all, I have to say is my love for God, which kindles and fuels my love for people.
That's awesome.
And then also what keeps me going is the testimonies and the witnesses of how we are making a difference in the lives of people. One of example, we've received many testimonies. I'll talk two very quickly. One happened here at Emancipation Park.
Oh.
We were one of the major sponsors for the Third Ward Dental Clinic.
That's right.
And that day, our hearts was just overflowing because we received so many testimonies. People were so happy. I've never seen people happy to get their teeth pulled.
Yes.
I mean, some of them had all of them pulled, and they would
Wow.
come out with no teeth, and they were smiling and crying. Oh, thank you so much. I couldn't have done this. And I was in pain and didn't know what to do because they didn't have money for dental insurance and dental to go see a dentist.
Yeah.
So that was a blessing. And then during the pandemic, one day I was sitting at the church and the doorbell rang, and I went and answered the door, and it was a lady at the door. And she said, I came to give you something. She said, I received my stimulus check, the $1,400.
Yes.
And she had 3 money orders in her hand.
Wow.
And they were $40 each. And she had 3 different churches' names on each one. And she said, I have one for Trinity East. She said, I know I need to pay my bills. She said, but I had to come back and give first because your food pantry has been a blessing. It's where I got my food from. It kept me going. Wow. And I just want to give back and be a blessing. Yeah. And that really touched my heart. Absolutely. You see the evidence that you're making a difference and that we are providing and giving and sharing what God blesses us with to be a blessing.
Oh my goodness, that almost brought tears to my eyes. It just, when you're able to see the impact that you're making on the people, the surrounding community, it just truly makes a difference as a leader to know that every morning you have a purpose to get up and do what God called you to do. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yes. My last question is, what does healing mean to you? And this is such an interesting question, though it seems so simple. We believe it's important for our audience and our members and our community to be able to hear the church, a leader of the church, to be able to give our audience that perspective and understanding what does that mean to you, so they as well can obtain that in return. So.
Well, for me, when you hear the term healing, you think of physical healing, being healed from sickness, and that is healing. But for me, it's more than that. It's being made whole, complete. When Jesus healed people, he would say, go and you are made whole. It's the physical, the spiritual, the mental, all parts of healing, all aspects. And for the community to be made whole again, where you have adequate housing, you have adequate school systems for all kids, you have adequate food supply, you have access to good we have the medical center right here, but does everybody have access to that medical center? That's what healing is. Everybody enjoying that abundant life that Jesus said he came to give us.
That's right. That's right. I don't think that you could have said it any better. Just to sum it up, I believe just with your perspective, being a church leader, a community leader, that will help encourage someone who needs a better understanding as to how to obtain what it is they're searching for during this time. So thank you so much for giving that answer to our audience members. And again, thank you so much for joining us on our panel today for the role of the Black church in the Black community, as the church plays a pivotal role in our communities. It's so important for our audience members to understand the church's perspective on how they are able to help during this time. So thank you, Reverend White.
Thank you so much for having me again, and we are praying for you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Castro L. Walker Sr., Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church, located in the heart of Midtown in 3rd Ward, Houston, Texas, and I am the senior pastor.
Thank you, Pastor Walker, for being here on our Juneteenth segment for the role of the Black church in the Black community. We're so honored to have your presence here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to get right into it because it's so important for our audience to understand how important the church plays a role in the community, especially during such challenging times that we've all lived in the last year, of course. But just your role as a leader and just getting your perspective is something we believed our audience members needed to hear today. So I'm going to start off with the first question, okay?
Okay.
How would you state the purpose and meaning of your church here in the community?
Basically, we are led to, first of all, meet the spiritual needs of our community. And for the last 29 years as the pastor, we've tried to implement programs that will be beneficial to the whole person.
Yes.
And we try to meet spiritual and physical needs. And my predecessor was Dr. DeLeon Everett, who was ensconced and entrenched in the community. Yes, and so I just followed his lead and have led the church to higher heights as it relates to impacting all of the people in our community.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's a great answer. Impact is what I really hear that stood out to me the most is, you know, the impact that you are being able to impute into the community. And I thank God for the footsteps that you obviously are following from your predecessor. You know, obviously 29 years of ministry, I can only imagine the amazing experiences and the testimonies you've heard with serving the people. So thank you so much for sharing that. My second question to you is, can you recall the moment that caused your church to react and to be involved?
The church has been involved for over 60 or 70 years. I would imagine Dr. Everett being a member of the school board and an educator, it was just easy for me to follow in his footsteps. And so we've been actively involved for several decades. And we just try to instill in our members to keep the fire burning.
Absolutely.
That we would nurture people, that we would bring out the best of people, and then have those positive attitudes make a change in our entire society.
Absolutely.
And so from the children to the teenagers, to the young adults, to our senior citizens, we are all actively involved in the same goal. That is to bring glory to God and to spread the word and to nurture people that they would be the best that they can be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, that's, you say that so eloquently because it's so important to nurture, obviously, from the smallest, obviously, to the eldest, because we all serve a purpose in everything that we do. That's why when it comes together, the body functions so beautifully. So I really appreciate the vision that your church has and the mission that it has for the third world community and those surrounding communities. So thank you for that. What keeps you going again and again as a community leader? Pastor Walker.
When you see positive results in people, we have officers of our church who were at one time homeless and destitute.
Wow.
And they have grown to be spiritual leaders, viable employees of various companies. When I see our young people grow from elementary to junior high, senior high, college graduates, and then many are engineers, going into the medical profession, educators, entrepreneurs who start their own businesses. That excites me and causes me to have the drive that I have to instill more and to have more of a positive impact on people.
Absolutely. And I know you know this so well, but this life obviously is not ours. You know, everything that we do, everything that you do is for someone else to make that greater impact into obviously the generations that's following. So it's really, I believe you have quite a few testimonies of your members that go to your church, and I know they're so honored to have you as their shepherd. My last question to you, Pastor Walker, what does healing mean to you?
Healing to me is when someone goes full circle, no matter what condition their condition was in, after they encounter a close relationship with Christ, and that person is healed totally, wholly, in every spectrum, physically, emotionally, spiritually. We try our best to meet the needs of our people and meet them where they are.
That's right.
and then elevate them to where they need to be.
That's good.
And with God, the sky is the limit.
It
and
is.
when we see people develop, when we see them, that they are nurtured, when we see them mature, we just give God the praise, the honor, and the glory.
Absolutely.
Because it's all because of Him that we press on toward that mark.
Absolutely. And you know, this so beautifully said. Keeping God as the foundation
Yes.
is where one can find their healing.
Yes.
And that's such a profound answer, so simple, but it's the truth.
It is.
Yes, it is. So thank you so much, Pastor Walker,
My
for
pleasure.
sharing your perspective and being here on this stage just to bless me with your presence.
Thank you.
And I know that's a blessing to our audience. So thank you so much, sir. And we will continue to keep your ministry in prayer as well.
God
too.
bless.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Pastor Lou McElroy, Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, 500 Clay Street, interim pastor.
Pastor Lou, thank you so much for joining us for our Juneteenth segment for the role of the Black church in the Black community. It's such an honor to be able to sit down with you today.
Yes, yes. Well, I want to thank you for the invite.
Yes, sir.
It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here
Yes.
to talk with you and our audience on such an important occasion.
Absolutely, and we understand how important and vital the role is that the church plays in the community. That's why we wanted this segment to air. So let's get started.
Sure.
Okay. How would you state the purpose and the meaning of your church here in the community?
For Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, our purpose is what it's always been, and that is to be a beacon of light for hope and change.
Yes.
To free people from racism and social injustices, to provide for the sick, the homeless, those that are hungry. We want to be able to continue to uplift families and children of our community.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at the community, Antioch is only 30 years younger
Wow.
than this city.
Wow.
You understand that? I mean,
Yes.
look at the dynamics of that.
Wow.
Houston is 30 years older than Antioch. So I like to tell people Antioch and this city grew up together.
Yes.
Has the relationship always been perfect? Like every relationship, there's ups and downs.
Yes.
But I do believe that God has prepared this city,
Yes.
this community,
Yes.
and our church for such a time as this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very profound answer. And I like how you use the word relationship because that's what the church is. It's and that's what it encourages the community to have is a relationship.
Yes.
Obviously with Jesus Christ
Right.
and obviously with the Lord because that's where you will be able to find
Correct.
the leaders in place to be
Correct.
able to help people understand that even more so.
And we have that fundamental mission that is ours from Scripture.
Yes,
To
yes.
preach the gospel message, to
That's
save
right.
souls.
Yes.
And we are doing that.
Yes.
But when you look at the community is God's people.
That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
Very well said. Thank you. Second question, let me ask you.
Sure.
Can you recall the moment that caused your church to react, to rise up, to become involved?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. And this will probably be a review, but yet a piece of history lesson for some.
Okay.
Our church, the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, was first founded by Jack Yates.
Yes.
And as a freed man in Virginia, married to his wife, who belonged to another slave master,
Wow.
went back into slavery as that family was moving to
Wow.
Texas. He went into slavery to be with his wife and family. So we're talking about a resilience and a spirit that was born in a man, that a man carried from Virginia to Texas, so that when freedom hit on June 19th,
Oh, my goodness.
1865,
My goodness.
and we were freed here, having had that experience of freedom. He was proficient in reading and writing and mathematics. So what God had given him and our church to be such a catalyst for change,
Yeah.
He poured that into the foundations of our first church. He poured that same spirit and zeal into the beams and the boards and the roof of our first church. And I'll have to say that it's that same spirit today that makes our church a catalyst for change.
Absolutely.
Look, we were there during Reconstruction. We were there during Jim Crow.
Yeah.
We were assisting our veterans from World War I and World War II when they got home
Yes.
to provide jobs in masonry work,
Yes.
construction work. The Spanish flu was a huge pandemic.
Yes.
Our church has been educating and providing vaccines for this pandemic, COVID-19. We're in the community helping our children. Last thing, we've partnered with a law firm, Gardere and Foley. This is our 25th year for having an oratory competition on Martin Luther King's birthday.
That's
so
awesome.
we are a product of change, and we
Yes.
want to continue to be that catalyst for change.
Thank you for being here.
Sure. Happy to be here.
Because as we are in Emancipation Park Conservancy,
Yes.
the soil, the richness, the
yes.
history that your family has brought,
Sure.
to the legacy of this community is
Sure.
unfathomable. And just, the people need to understand this.
Yes.
That's why it's so important that you're able to give these expressions, explain the historical aspects
Yes.
of your ministry and what it has been and where it is
Yes.
at now.
Yes.
So this is just phenomenal. I'm so glad. I know our viewers are just so excited to hear this information.
Yes,
So
yes.
thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Welcome.
My goodness, the third question, what
Sure.
keeps you going again and again as a community leader?
Wow, that's a good question. Being the interim pastor of such a phenomenal church, our congregation, probably some of the most wonderful people you ever want to meet. God saw fit to have me serve in this capacity
Yes.
during this time. That zeal and that drive has always been with me. But it is in this capacity that I must say that it is solely because of the unction of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
It is the desire to serve Him. It is the desire to serve His people.
Yes.
I really like the opportunity, to stimulate, to bring together those relationships, not only in our congregation,
Of course.
but also in our community.
Yes.
I do believe that from the time the sun rises,
Yes.
and you can ask my wife about this, I'm not a coffee drinker,
Okay.
right?
That's good.
Yeah, I'm 90 miles an hour already.
Right.
Right. But I don't know. I try and squeeze every bit of sunshine out of the sun.
Yes.
And every opportunity, to your point, that God has given me. And I have the support of our church. I've got the support of our community. And most of all, I have the support of my family to do
helpful.
so when we talk about a catalyst that makes me want to get involved,
Right.
you talked earlier about the soil.
Yes.
It's the knowledge that I have of the struggles that our people prior to us went through,
That's right.
right? So that we can afford the opportunities to sit and converse like we do.
That's right. That's right. And it is a privilege.
It is a
It's
privilege.
a privilege.
It is a privilege, yes.
Oh my goodness. I don't think you could have said, I don't think anybody could have said that any better.
Amen.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I see that drive. I see that passion. And I know it far exceeds you as a human.
It does.
Something else is there.
It is.
And I know,
It
and
is.
I can see it. So
And yes,
Yes,
and it is hard. It is hard. My apologies, but it is
No, it's
hard.
beautiful.
It's hard to turn it off.
you can't. You can't
Right.
control that. It's beautiful.
It's hard to turn it off sometimes.
This is the shine that the world needs.
Yes.
And that's why you're in place to be the lighthouse that you are in the community. So
I am such a servant, and I'm so humbled to be in the position that I am to serve at just this moment in time, such a historic church.
Oh my goodness,
with
yes.
such a wonderful people.
yes, during historical times.
Yes, yes,
Just imagine.
yes.
Okay, and the last question.
Sure.
What does healing mean to you?
Wow. And I know I said the earlier question was a good question, but this one is a great question.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Healing for me is a continuous process.
Yes,
Even
it is.
when you think you're healed,
Oh, come on now.
right? There's still healing to be done. I think the healing process is great for an individual. It's great for a group of people. But more importantly, it's needed and necessary for a community.
Yes.
And I try not to take the myopic approach to healing.
Yes.
When it comes to healing, the X that marks the spot for me is the awareness that I need to be healed.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
That's right. That's right.
And once, for me, that's my glory point. Once I see a light go off in someone's head, even in my own life,
That's right.
where healing is constantly a process for me.
Yes.
I'm a firm believer in counseling. Being a
Yes.
Christian, I move toward Christian counseling.
So good you said that.
But healing is necessary because it brings the person, the group, or a community back to that center, that balance of completion and wholeness.
Yes, yes.
Right? And it's a difficult process.
Yes, it is.
You have to own what you have to own in order to purge
Yes.
what's necessary to purge.
That's right.
And many of us don't want to go down that path. It makes you feel your most vulnerable when you are healing.
Yes.
But I tell people that is the process necessary for completion. Being a certified Christian counselor, myself,
Yes.
I recognize and I integrate some of those healing processes
Yes.
in my messages.
Absolutely.
But it's that balance of approach that we have to make our people comfortable in releasing and talking about
Absolutely.
their pains and sufferings.
Especially during such sensitive times such
Sure.
as these that we're living in.
Sure.
And I really want to thank you for your transparency
Sure.
and being able to, really show a demonstration of that process.
Yes.
Because I believe more people need to be encouraged by seeing our community leaders be more transparent to
Yes.
such a degree,
Yes, ma'am.
especially with everything that's going on, especially with mental health on the rise. There's so many elements right now that people need to be able to look at as an example from our church leaders, and I believe you definitely have shown that today.
Well, my last thing on the subject is that when we look at healing, we want to lump healing into one bucket, right? But there's spiritual healing.
That's right.
There's mental healing. There's emotional healing.
Yeah,
And then there's physical healing,
That's right.
right? And the process for all of those is the same, and it starts with me.
That's right. That's right. That's
Right.
perfectly said.
Yes. Yes,
You,
yes, yes.
There is really, truly nothing else you need to say. I believe that our viewers should be able to capture even an understanding of the beginning process of what it's
Yes.
going to take to heal.
Yes.
Through just sitting down with talking with you today. So thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Pastor Lou,
Thank
for
you
being
for
here.
having me.
And I know this is a blessing to our viewers, and just thank you for blessing us today.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Dr. T. Grant Malone, that is at the historic St. John Baptist Church in the heart of 3rd Ward, Texas, the Trey, 2702 Emancipation Street. And I am serving as senior pastor for the last 16 years.
Dr. Malone, thank you so much for being here with us on our Juneteenth segment, The Role of the Black Church in the Black Community. Such an honor to be able to sit down with you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yes,
Honored
sir.
to have you. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So we're going to get right into it, and we're going to start with our first question, okay?
Sure.
How would you state the purpose and meaning of your church here in the community?
The Black Church, as it is and as it were, has always been the central focus of the Black family, of the Black community, and I think that the role of the historic St. John Church has not changed. We have said that we are a Christ-centered church that meets the needs of people. So we suppose that there are various needs that we must address for the community, be that voting rights, be that making sure that our people are educated on what they're voting for, educated on this latest deal with COVID and having testing sites set up,
Absolutely.
as well as vaccination. And I think that the church is used, should be used more than just shouting and praising God.
That's right.
But it also has a responsibility to the community. And that is
Absolutely.
to give from every facet of our lives.
Absolutely. And I like how Dr. Malone mentioned a responsibility to the communities. It's not just about Wednesday Bible study and Sunday service. It's truly about being a lighthouse to the community to serve as just multiple resources. Like you said, meeting the needs of the people. And not only meeting the needs, but at the moment, meeting the needs at the moment.
That's correct.
Yeah,
There are a lot of people who think that church is one-dimensional.
That's right.
And there's so many dimensions. And as we are dealt with last month of May,
Yeah.
mental health. Those types of things are important to our community and have been taboo and have
Absolutely.
not been spoken about in the church. And those
Absolutely.
types of things we need to bring out in the church.
Oh goodness, it sounds like you guys are definitely operating very missionally. So we
I think
appreciate
that's
that.
where we should be, all of us. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Okay, so second question: can you recall the moment that caused your church to react and to become involved?
There are many recent moments that I can recall, but St. John has been pivotal in the Third Ward community, in the Houston community. It was the first Black entity or organization to have a meeting in the Astrodome.
Oh, really?
In 1965, they hosted the National Baptist Convention of America, and the first organization religious of any kind to go into the Astrodome. St. John was active in supporting schools in the area. The Beauty College had its commencement, and Dr. Martin King spoke at the historic St. John Church. So that they have always been a central focus of the city of Third Ward, to serve as not only a beacon of hope and of light, but also to deal with so many facets of life. And they were so many times they were the first to do things in this city.
Yes, sir.
That church was built in 1948, 1949 to seat 2,500 people. And Dr. Pleasance was way ahead of his time. But it has always been a church that has sought to serve humanity throughout its tenure, throughout its 122 years.
My goodness. And this is why it's so good to allow our audience members and those that are watching on social media to be able to understand the foundational work that had been laid and that how the legacy is continuing on today. So really thank you so much for allowing our members and audiences to be able to understand the roots of your organization.
Right.
Let's see. Third question. What keeps you going again and again as a community leader?
I think that, you know, I've been preaching for 27 years, pastoring here for 16 years. And I think for me, it has always been to see people helped, to see people change, to see people transform. Not that I am perfect, not that anybody's perfect,
That's right.
but that we present a perfect God to people who are broken.
There you go.
And to see people in the community changed. I have worked at our church till the wee hours of the morning, and I don't, I speak to the homeless. They know my name. I know their names. And I think that just seeing people, after you give them respect, seeing them respect the church and watch out for the church and care for things around you, that's important to me. But the most important is a life changed.
Wow.
A life changed.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't mean that a life made perfect, but I mean a life that you can see growth and development.
That's right. That's right.
And people are moving in the right direction.
Yes.
Even as a community, to see community change, to see the community lifted and feel better about themselves.
Absolutely.
We are proud people, you all. And we are proud in God, but we are proud of things that are accomplished in our community.
That's right. That's so beautiful. Transformation.
Yes.
Is the word I hear.
Yes.
And the very thing that you are displaying, I know God's done a great work in you as well too.
Yes.
Because clearly you have the same desire to see others walk in that sort of transformation.
Absolutely.
So, yes. Thank you for sharing that with
Absolutely.
our audience.
Absolutely.
And our last question, and just take some time here, but what does healing mean to you? And I'll say this. We wanted to present this question because we understand that right now there are so many people in our community that need healing. We've been through such a challenging time, but what does it mean to you? Because I believe it's important for those that are watching to understand your perspective on that.
There is a difference between scars and wounds.
My goodness.
Wounds are still open, but later they become scars. But as they're healing, I was taught as a boy that a lot of times your wounds, when they begin to heal, they'll begin to be agitated, they'll itch. And I think that healing is a process.
Yes.
It's a process towards wholeness.
Yeah.
In the scriptures, many people came to Jesus for healing, and he ended up saying, "Thy faith has made thee whole." I think that healing sometimes takes the involvement of people around you. In the scripture, it says that because Jesus saw their faith,
Yes.
that people around you can help you to heal.
That's right.
And I think it is incumbent upon the community to aid in the healing of our nation.
That's right.
And so I think that we have to be real with the fact that we do have wounds and that we're reaching to get toward the scar.
That's right.
That we're
That's
reaching
good.
to get toward the place where we look back and say, this is what I've been through.
That's right.
And I think that healing also takes place when individuals have passed a point
Yes.
and they have scars. They're willing to show their scars.
Oh my goodness,
and say
yes.
that this is where I was.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and scars are pretty permanent. And I've got a scar on my knee from when I jumped the fence at 9 years old.
Yes.
And you can always tell, scars tell your story.
They do.
They tell what you've been through, the things that you've suffered, but they also give hope to where you can go.
Yes.
And so healing is the process of going through hurt, going through pain, but realizing that hope is available, having the right people around you, positive energy, and also being willing to submit yourself to recognizing that you need to be healed.
That's right.
And that you need to come forth. And I think that when we realize that as a community, when we realize that there are people who are hurting, when we realize that there are people who have suffered, we realize that there are people who have gone through some very difficult times during this pandemic, not being able to say goodbye to their loved ones other than through iPads, not being able to be close to their grandmothers and grandfathers because of this limit, because of this wall of this coronavirus. I think that we have more healing to do than just the body.
That's right.
It's the mind, it's the spirit, it's the soul.
Yes.
It is our innermost being.
Yes.
And we, the church, particularly the Black church, has a role in helping to heal where we are.
My goodness. That's right.
We are the salt of the earth.
We are.
And salt, it agitates a wound, but it also will heal.
That's
it
right.
preserves.
That's right.
And that's our job. That's our responsibility. We have an accountability to God to do our best to help heal the nation. And even for the audience that's watching, I'll say this, healing is always available.
That's it.
It's available to anybody.
That's right.
It's available.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Malone, for just bringing all of your wisdom and your passion and your dedication that you've poured out to the community. And I know that this segment, anyone watching this segment during this time, they're truly going to be blessed because this was something that they needed to hear.
Wow.
So yes, so thank you so much for joining us.
Well,
it's been a pleasure and an honor having you.
Thank you for having us. The Queen has done a wonderful job today, and we appreciate her.
Oh, goodness,
and I thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
I'm really honored.
I'm so humbled. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to our Juneteenth segment, The Role of the Black Church in the Black Community. We'd like to thank our Vice Chairman, Jacqueline Bostic, and our Executive Director, Lucy Bremond, our board, and our staff. We would also like to take this time to thank our Third Ward Community Church leaders. We'd like to thank Pastor Linda Davis at Boynton United Methodist Church, Pastor Ed Jones III at Trinity United Methodist Church, Reverend Marilyn White, pastor at Trinity East United Methodist Church, Pastor Castro Walker at Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church, Pastor Lou McElroy, interim pastor at Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, and last but never least, Dr. T. Grant Malone, senior pastor at the historic St. John's Missionary Baptist Church. Thank you for tuning into our Juneteenth segment, The Role of the Black Church in the Black Community. We hope this segment has provided resources and gained you an understanding to the perspective of our church leaders here in Third Ward. May you all have a wonderful Juneteenth.